Just let your soul glow.
Welcome to the Soul Shift Sessions podcast, where we dive deep into transformative conversations that empower you to elevate your mindset, break through limitations, and create the life you truly desire.
Hosted by Coach Sapphire Star and Coach McCloud, this podcast is your go-to source for actionable insights, inspiring stories, and expert advice on personal growth, financial freedom, and living with purpose.
Each episode is designed to help you shift your mindset, overcome obstacles, and embrace a life of abundance and fulfillment. Whether you're looking to transform your relationship with money, enhance your well-being, or unlock your full potential, the Soul Shift Sessions will guide you on your journey.
Julie Stevens is a somatic spiritual healer and coach specializing in helping those she works with heal from the effects of PTSD and trauma to regulate their nervous system so that they can thrive and be free. She is the founder of the Urban Retreat Center in Oakland, California, where she facilitates healing through plant medicine and other psychedelics.
Welcome to another episode of Soul Shift Sessions podcast, where we have deep, transformative conversations to help you heal and transform your mind to transform your life. I am your favorite freedom and financial life coach, Coach Sapphire Star. And of course, I have with me my favorite co-host, Coach
McCloud.
Yes, and we have a special guest here today. I'm super, super excited to have her on the show with us. Today, we are going to be talking about breaking free from trauma and the profound connection between mind, body, and soul through alternative therapies and treatment. Welcome to the podcast, Julie. So excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited because, Julie, I haven't seen you in forever, right? And when we hung out at the conference, you and I got to be buddy. So I really am glad to see you again. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So first of all,
So great.
We haven't seen each other in a while. So tell me, what's been up since then? What's new and exciting since then?
Oh my goodness. I feel like life and healing and all the things are on fast forward.
Yeah.
Say not just for me, but the planet, right? There's some stuff that's going on that's like, woof, we don't want to talk about that right now. But in terms of well, we're here. Oh my goodness. What's been going on? Let's see.
Julie, I don't mean to interrupt you, but before you go there, I was going to say, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and how you even got to what you're doing?
Give us your story. This moment, I like to call it chapter right now.
Yes.
Right. So chapter right now, backing up, years back in in the early 2000s, I was juggling all the balls, right, in my life. And I think God's spirit said to me, like, you are one person and your little body can't sustain all of this. And when you look at me now, you see me as a transformational coach, a speaker, a healer, working with primarily women, marginalized folks, helping them to, like you said, break free from the confines of traumas, right? But it wasn't always this way, because going back to the early 2000s, my life was a SH ... T right? I don't know if I can curse here or not.
Say whatever you need to say. Like, come as you are.
I'm like a truck driver. my life was a shit show, y'all. Okay. And everything I thought I was proud of the fact that I was intense.
Mhm.
I thought that was a badge of honor to be an intense person. Like how I was addicted to the drama of all the traumas that I was holding in a storage unit. Right? I'd put the key in the lock, locked it up, threw away the key, but it kept showing up in my life, in relationships, in my own relationship. I had no relationship to Creator or God, how I know it today. And I experienced the dark days, dark nights of the soul. Everything came crashing down, right? I had somewhat of a support system. However, um, running my business, uh, holding on to all those traumas, being intense, all of those things, at the moment when my mother got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, mind you, my mother was my rock. She could have been a motivational speaker, a freaking Buddha, whatever. She had so much wisdom and love that was unconditional for me. Everything crashed. And from that point, it was like if I was up here and I was in a circle, I was now down at the bottom. And I literally one day drove to work in my car, called my manager on the phone from my car, and my heart was just racing and beating out of my chest. And I thought, oh God, am I having a heart attack or a stroke? What in the F is going on here? Long story short, I made it to the emergency room, and the doctor walks in and says, "You're having a severe panic attack." And I was like, Julie Stevens doesn't panic. What the hell are you talking about?
Right.
Like, I'm not a panicker.
Right.
I got all my shit together. I'm a package. Anyways, long story short, I knew I had to quadruple down on all the things healing. And I began to collect information. I kept doing what I was doing, but now quadrupling in on it. And it brought me to my knees. I knew I was the horse at the water, but no one was making me drink or do the work. And that had to come from within my soul. So there are so many steps along the way that have gotten me to where I am. And the transformation continues to be profound in my life, to heal from if I was going to pull out a scroll of the long list of the traumas, nobody wants to compare their traumas because we've all had them and we all go through them in our own way on the daily. So anyway, going on a sidetrack. So I came to that point and realized something needed to shift. And so it's led me on this journey, continuing the journey to free my human and allow the messages from God, which I can now say in my mouth, the word God. And here I am. And I would love to share with you more specifics as we get into the conversation. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yes, absolutely. So much to unpack there. Like, thank you so much for sharing that. And this is what our podcast is about. It's about soul shifting and having those moments in our lives where we may be in a place and we're not really sure how to even come out of it or even what to do. And so our podcast is to, number one, have these conversations, these hard conversations that people don't have, but also helping and uplifting our listeners to help them, give them the tools they need to ultimately make the shift in their life. And I like when you said about, you began that journey of transformation after having the severe panic attack. What was that point in your life was like? Like, what did you do to begin that shift in that transformation?
Mm. Well, let me say, proceed this by saying, I feel like everything happens in divine timing, right? And the divine timing of, you know, the biggest challenge and the biggest gift of my mom's passing after getting that diagnosis was that she passed me the baton, right? And she's like, go girl, you go. You go further than I could go. And I knew that at that point, like, can you reframe the question? I'm sorry. Say it one more time.
What were the steps that you took to begin your transformation? I know you said there were things because you said I quadrupled the things that I was doing. So there was something that you was doing that you decided that became more urgent, more important for you to continue,
Mm,
almost like amplify it. Like what were those things?
yeah. Hmm. What were those things? Let's see. Well, I've been working with several shamanic healers
Mm.
throughout the last 17 and a half years. And I've been working specifically with healing through plant medicine and shamanic practices based on Andean cosmology. So that was one thing that was a definite, like, common denominator throughout healing my past, so I could lay down the past and actually be in the now. So I quadrupled down on that. Um, and when I was saying everything happens in divine timing, I feel like, so my mom died, and then I sold my business right before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
Then the pandemic hit, and then my dad died. Wow. And I was like, all right now, wow, this is getting good or real or all the things. And I was like, holy shit. All right. I had to really, being here as we all like got on lockdown, and some of us have families and some of us, I live by myself. And I was like, this shit is real now. Like it was really real, and it required me to dig deep. And so the work that I'd done with the shamanic healing, let's see what else. I have been receiving downloads through doing the plant medicine from spirit, from creator, whatever you want to call it, uh, that was teaching me techniques on how to heal my nervous system, how to heal from these traumas that were in the storage unit that weren't really in the storage unit. And it became like, so here's this tool and here's this tool. And then there's, the years of therapy I'd been in my life. I hired a coach during that time because I was like, I need help, y'all. Like, I can't do this shit by myself. And doing craniosacral therapy and hands-on healing. The other thing is really owning my ancestors.
Ooh.
Owning my ancestors, because I had previously not really, I kind of owned it, and I also was a little bit like, oh shit, as a white-bodied person, like, okay, how am I going to take the deep dive into that and really own all of it? And back to my dad's mother, who we referred to each other as Old Bean. So going back to knowing the teachings that she shared with me. And she was a seer, and she was a minister in the Universal Life Church. And she brought me to all these metaphysical events and gatherings, and she started helping me to make sense of the things that I was seeing that a lot of other people weren't seeing, right? And I can see cells, I can see energy, I can see all these things. But as a child, I was like, what the hell is that? So here's another tool, right? And so here I am in my house during the pandemic and the lockdown, thinking, okay, this is God telling me, like, child, dig deep and wide and go into your roots. And because who says that? Sean Smith, before there's the fruits, there's the roots, right?
Mhm.
And so I went down into the roots, and it helped. Yeah, it helped me to, my tree didn't knock down.
Part of working with those roots is like the biggest work is done in the dark.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Under,
Yeah.
well,
Underground.
Well said.
You know,
And I think that, oh, go ahead. I'm
I was
sorry.
just gonna say that there are plenty of times where it's deep dark and there's no one else there but you.
yeah.
So right. Yeah. And I think that most of us humans tend to be so scared of that darkness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there's so much like the unknown, right? And even scientifically, humans are just discovering now that in the dark matter space that we previously thought there was nothing, there's so much there,
Well, the plant
right?
has
There's
taught us
all
that, right? There's so much going on in the ground, right? It's more than just the roots because the roots are being nurtured by what's in the soil, which is also
exactly.
under.
Exactly. In Andean cosmology, they call that uku pacha. So uku is like the underworld and pacha is underneath the earth.
Wow.
But it's also like your soul, like what's happening underneath, if the thing's here, it's the thing under the thing. And so coming into that space, um, it's profound.
Yeah.
And it's not scary when you go like this.
Do you think,
If you go like that, you're scared.
yeah, right. Do you think that part of I'm going to say the bad rap that the darkness has gotten, do you think that comes from the conditioning of our culture?
100. 100%. I mean, not only is it darkness you can't see in the light, it's also the metaphor of the construct of race.
Yeah.
I heard,
Everything.
I don't know where I heard this last week, but I heard someone say that um, for people who have the white skin, it's like good people doing bad things. But for someone who
Ooh.
is of darker skin and who is
Mhm.
doing well, it's like it's only a matter of time before we see the real person come out.
Ooh.
And like you said, all those are social constructs
Yeah.
that been downloaded into us and conditioning into us. And it's
Yeah.
interesting to think about the darkness because in the womb, we're in the darkness.
In the darkness. And how much
No
is
matter who we
happening?
are.
How much is happening
Yeah.
in that dark place?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and there's life happening. And as a scientist, there's a whole world that we can't even see with our naked eye of microorganisms, things that
That's
are
so
contributing
cool.
to our very essence of who we are, very being that is happening that we can't even see.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
we tend to look at things with our eyesight.
Yeah.
And even with Les Brown, he talked about another level of, because we're talking about mind, body, soul connection. He talks
Mhm.
about your mind sight, how we see things and
Mm-hmm.
envision things with our mind. It's visionary things happening all at once. But having to tap into your brain or that level of intelligence where you have to believe something bigger than yourself.
Mhm.
Uh, because if you rely solely on your capabilities, on what you're able to do, there's a huge limitation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're human beings, and if you don't believe in something,
Yeah.
I can
Beyond
imagine
yourself.
cause a lot of
Loneliness.
stress.
Here's
A lot of stress, loneliness, fear,
all of it,
all
right?
the
Yeah,
things. Then you become your best critic and your worst critic and your
Absolutely.
only friend and your
I find it
yeah.
interesting that there are certain things that we'll acknowledge as in this culture that we cannot see. Gravity, right? Like we all can agree that gravity exists, but can none of us see it? We can feel it when we
yeah,
fall on our face,
It yeah.
but then we talk about vibrating, that you are
Mhm.
an energetic being that is vibrating on a certain frequency, and that frequency matches up with the other things that are on that frequency. And so if you are vibrating on a low frequency, then your experience is going to be consistent with that level of vibration, meaning that you may experience low moments.
Now you're speaking my language, Kyle McCloud. I love it where science meets spirituality. That's my
So,
jam.
yeah, yeah,
yes, ab- absolutely. I believe science just explains. It explains the spiritual.
Language, right?
Doesn't eliminate it.
yes.
It doesn't say it doesn't exist. It really gives us a language to try to understand what is.
That way it's not
To
just
exact
magic, right? Like, it's just not this unexplainable
right,
magic.
like
Yeah.
right,
You
but it
got the
explains.
magic and I don't. And I don't know how
Yeah,
to yeah.
and I absolutely, as a scientist, I absolutely love science because it explains. To me, it confirms even more that there's something bigger and more powerful
Yeah.
than us. Because how else can you explain? Because there's only a certain level that science could even go. Because then they'll be like, "Oh, it's the Big Bang. It just bang happened."
And
It just gets to a point where they can't even explain it any further, and it's just
Right.
like, "Oh yeah,
yeah,
just oh,
believe me. Believe me. Yeah, it's so interesting because you're really speaking my language here. One of the coolest things is working with in the psychedelic space is I was, for years, as I was telling you, I've worked with these shamanic healers from around the world, and I'm learning through experience some of the things that we're talking about, the energy that you can't see, that it's actually there, and that matter changes energy, and it's not the other way around. Or no, I'm sorry, that energy can change matter, and it's not the other way around. And then more recently, I went to a conference that was the Psychedelic Society of SF, and they invited a scientist from UCSF, a neurophysicist, and he started languaging, putting into words what I had known on a spiritual level around the neuroplasticity that is created through ingesting. He's talking about psychedelics on the whole, and I work with one in particular called Wachuma, and that what happens is if this is a neuron and this is another neuron and they're speaking to each other with the neurotransmitters, the first thing I learned was that's called neurogenesis. So that's the languaging between the neurons. And then the other thing that was fascinating to me that is a scientific fact, excuse me, is that the when you ingest or however you take in the psychedelic, that it creates not only on the first day, but up until 30 days, your brain is like on this high frequency of neuroplasticity. right? And so the previous programs that were running, the neural pathways that were, fear, shame, doubt, worry, all the things are then like in prime uh fashion to be like, okay, do you want to keep doing this? Do you want to keep running this, or do you want to change it? And so, yeah, it's all about how we perceive the thing, but then, the neuroplasticity of the brain and all of that it's fascinating how we can look at something from a certain lens, or we can look at it from a different lens. And
Yeah.
that's where the healing resides. And the juiciness of our own
From just changing the lens.
freedom.
Just changing the lens.
You know, if I'd have known that, no,
How
I
many
didn't
times do
need
you
to
want to
know
say
it
that though? Like, how many times do you want to say like, oh, if I had just known this back then,
Yeah.
right? Only to realize
It would
that,
have changed the whole trajectory, though.
right, like there would have been
Oh, go
other
ahead.
lessons to learn if that. And the thing is, we are at this point because of the sum of our experiences. I
Yep.
can't have the, it's interesting. I was listening to this audio on the way out today because I went cycling today, and the person who was speaking was talking about that. Yeah, we might want to vibrate on a high frequency all the time. However, the challenge with that is you lose the contrast, which means that you don't find out, you don't hone in on what you really want because you're not having enough experiences that you don't want.
Contrasting it. Exactly.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
true. The light cannot exist without the dark. The dark cannot exist without the light.
Julie, I want to have a good time all the
Yeah.
time. All the time.
The duality. I know, I want to be happy all the damn time. Well, if I didn't turn the switch off, then I wouldn't be able to turn it on.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have thrown out some terms, and I was wondering if you can just explain a little bit, because my experience, like I know what you mean by shamanic practices. I lived in Mexico, which is a very spiritual place in Playa del Carmen, and we have,
Nice.
yeah, and we have the plant medicine rituals and practices with the shamans and all those things. Yeah, and that's where I was introduced because I had never heard of these things before
Let's
until I
talk
lived,
more.
yeah, until I lived in Mexico. And so can you explain a little bit more about what you mean when you talked about shamanic practices, but also somatic and psychedelic therapy? What exactly is that for our listeners?
Yeah. So shamanic practices, from what my understanding and my experiences, are based on mine. So I'm not the expert of the whole world on this subject, just so you know. Just to be clear, that you are in alignment with above, where you are above, meaning above us, the cosmology, all the planets, the solar system. You're in alignment with what's on the earth, and you're also in alignment with what's under the earth. You're in alignment with with all living beings, seen or unseen, and the four elements, right? So and you're not separate from them. We are not separate from, the dark and the light, the earth, the air, the fire, the water, the wind, all of the things that we live in a right reciprocity. That when I am receiving something, which is every day, we're receiving like air in our lungs. We're receiving what we see, what we feel, what we hear, what we eat, all the things that, what am I giving back? How am I thanking all of the elements? How am I thanking the fire for warming my body? How am I thanking the air for coming into my lungs? So it's like this constant circle, right? And many cultures do that, right? And this is some of the learnings and teachings I've been grateful to be part of. And then your other question was about psychedelics and somatics. Is that correct?
Yes. What exactly is that?
So psychedelics and so let's see, I think one at a time. So psychedelics are can be categorized in different ways. Things that substances that cause you to drop out of programmed consciousness.
Oh, love that.
Damn.
Program
Oh,
consciousness.
oh, for consciousness. I said it.
Let me write that down. That is what said.
Also
Hey.
known as the ego.
Wow.
Program
Right? But when I
consciousness.
deliver you the word ego, you're like, what you talking about, Willis? Like it
Yeah,
can be like your ego gets in the way of
Yeah,
the word ego.
Right. Right. Your ego gets in the
Well,
way
my
of your
pro
ego.
your ego gets in the way of your ego and says,
What? How dare you?
Yeah.
ego, how dare you?
Right.
So
Which is just
it's
to
around
protect us, right? Like that our ego is out there to
Protect
try to
us.
protect us. Protect us
yeah,
at all
it's part of the
times.
nervous system, part of the reptilian brain, right? It was like, what are you? Yeah. Anyways, so yes, the psychedelics help you to drop into the subconscious, and also what I call the first eye. Also here, which is the pineal gland, right? That helps us to perceive. It's almost like an antenna for those elements and the vibrations and the unseen, for us to come into that realization that I'm not this. I'm not just this. I'm not just this skin and this, whatever my concept or perceptions of who I am. I'm actually so much more and so much less. Oh, at the same simultaneously, right?
Yeah.
That
So
less resonates heavily.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe that is can be truly enlightening, and also for some truly frightening.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. Because I remember just being out in the ocean on a surfboard. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I have not felt so small until I
Damn,
was
right?
out there. And it's just like that body of water is like letting you know how small you really are. And yet
Mm-hmm.
there's something within us and within each and every one of us that is like, just like you said, it is so much more. So much
Yeah.
more. With this physical
We're the
shell. The shell is small.
yeah. It's smaller than a grain,
Yeah. Yes.
like a microcosm of a microcosm.
Yes.
And like I said, that can be truly enlightening and or truly frightening.
At the same time.
Where you're like, a shark could come eat me. My heart could stop. I'm out here, I could die.
Yeah.
And yes, that is
That
true.
is true. But you could also have the
And
time of your life.
yes.
Right out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Realize you're part of it. Yeah. So yes, I think psychedelics have helped me to release some huge fears from, conscious programming.
Yeah.
That I was going to die, or somebody was going to hurt me, or this is going to happen, or what if, or shoulda, coulda, woulda, or all the fucking things, right? That my monkey mind is like spinning. Like, should I go to the bathroom before I get into bed? Should I get into bed before I go? All the things that are constantly running in the foreground and the background, psychedelics, the Wachuma in specific, help you. If there's a dial right here, ooh, turn it all the way down, off.
Yeah.
This is my essence, and it is love, and it is light. And anything that is not vibrating, residing in love and light is no longer welcome here.
Wow.
Yeah.
And once and I practice this, I come back to it like sometimes more than once a day, sometimes once a week, of those notions and those teachings. And that's when I know that I'm in alignment with Creator, Source, God.
Wow. Is that a part of the process of think about breaking free from trauma? Is this a part of that deconstructing all of that and reconstructing ideally what makes us feel whole again?
Yeah. Yeah. Because traumas are it's something that happened to us, through us, or for us, or all of the above. And until we can learn that releasing them is actually expressing them, releasing them, whether it's rage, anger, fear, all of those things that we suppress that become depression, right? The rage, we suppress it. The fear, we suppress it. The anger, we suppress it. And if we don't, when we're not allowed to, like when an animal in the wild, let's say a deer is drinking from a little pond and a bear comes and tries to attack it. Well, what they noticed is in the wild, the deer, if it's not fatally wounded, it will shake. It will shake and it will shake. They're saying shake it off. That's what it's doing, right? It's shaking it off. And then people will notice that the deer is then able to go back to the same pond and drink the same water without being like, oh shit, I can't never go back there. If I see a creature that looks like a bear, it's always going to scare me.
Wow.
And that we're taught in our humanness and our human body, like our mother or father or caregiver tells, baby, don't cry. Okay. Right. So we're learning all of these things for survival, like fear and crying is going to bring more danger.
I feel like there's
So
more to that though, because you said that the deer shakes it off and then can go back to the pond. And that's an interesting behavior because as human beings, how often do we have a certain experience? And because we don't want to live that experience ever again, whatever that thing is that we were doing at the time, we never do it again.
not safe.
Yeah. And I find that to be very interesting. Sapphire and I have this little saying called if you're not living, you're dying. Right. So
If you're not
dying, you're not
you're living.
yeah, if you're not dying, you're not living.
You're not living.
You're not living if you're not
That's
dying,
true.
right? And I noticed that there are certain things that I do that I've had negative experiences, but the benefit from doing that activity still has me coming back out there. Now, I might modify how I do it, but I noticed that there is a certain level of listening to myself that I have to do in order to override those type of behaviors. Case in point, I might go, like I do a lot of cycling. I have to sometimes go through construction zones and I'm like, I'm not going this way anymore because this construction zone now looks like this and it wasn't like that before. So I'm going to go a different way. And then I get this tug and this pull saying, go that way. And in my head, I'm like, no, I can't go that way because it is far more dangerous than it was
Yeah.
before. I can't go that way. But then I get an even stronger urge to go that way. And turns out that by listening and actually doing the thing, that I was able to, I don't know what all I avoided, but all I can say is that it worked out in my favor.
Yeah. And I think it's too having a safe space to, and just like the deer, like being able to release that. Most times we don't have the luxury
No.
or the option to really process what's even happening. Sometimes people go through trauma, especially as children. You don't even understand what's happening, and nor do you have the space to like go talk to somebody, be like, "Hey, this just happened. What is this?" Without being shut down, broken down, and then you learn, like you said, you learn behavior. Don't say anything, but you're
Pass
constantly
it along. Yeah.
hacking it, and then that's a learned behavior that you start to,
That's right.
oh, this happened, is bad. I'm not gonna say anything. But there needs to be some way to release that, get it out. So carry it, because trauma it's cellular, it's in your DNA. It's like, how do we release these things? How do we break free
Yeah.
from things? Yeah.
You're still speaking my language. And that's a good segue into somatics, right? So when I say somatic, how I define it is the embodiment. It's like, here's knowledge, body is wisdom, and somatics is the bridge, or is the being addressing the traumas or the things, right? Whether it's early childhood trauma, ancestral trauma, all of those things that we tend to carry as humans, that we're storing it in our nervous system, which is in our body, right? And we cannot heal trauma through talking about it and thinking we're going to be safe and telling myself, if I ride my bike down there, like, yes, it turned out for the best for you. However, until we address our nervous system, which is, I believe, the foundation, that we can't build the roof without addressing the foundation. And somatic healing is around creating that safety, right? Creating safety, where you go back and you actually do the things that mimic, not just shaking, right? But mimic that action of, oh, the shaking was actually a somatic thing, a somatic experience, if you will, and creating ways to calm your vagus nerve, creating ways that address the second brain in your gut that are telling you, no, don't go out there. And also, some of the most beautiful somatic learnings I have been able to read about are this book by Resma Menachem called My Grandmother's Hands. And he talks about ancestral trauma as a Black man. And I love the way he talks about specifically like folks whose ancestors were enslaved. Like, how am I, like Kyle or you, Sapphire, how am I going to go back and just find, like, before the trauma of the enslavement? And if you're asking me to bring my ancestors forward, that's genocide and rape and fear and all those things. And he addresses it into, like, where's the joy? Like, finding the joy in the ancestors, either that were in that time period or before then. And so you don't just call forward pain and anguish, but you also like the movement, the Black Joy movement, for example. Like that's where that comes out of. Like how can we empower, how can I as a queer person who was, never allowed to use the bathroom in grammar school because I was fearful of getting beat up. How can I find joy of my, the ancestors that I know that are queer and call that forward too, rather than just the pain and the, fear. So somatic healing addresses that. And my joy is to blend the spirituality and the somatic healing
Okay.
and grandma and all the things.
So let me ask, there's definitely, I know there's going to be someone who's listening who is probably going to want to know more about how to access these therapies that you're talking about. So the first question is, how does one do that? And I know that with the country having so many different laws in different states, that is there one that transcends all boundaries across the states that they have access to? And if not, are there things that they can do on their own that kind of put them on the path that you're talking?
Ooh, good questions.
Good question.
Well, there are, so I love working with people around any and all of what we're talking about as a transformational coach and healer. You can find me through my website, which is urbanretreatcenteroakland.com, and contact me through that. People can find me there. And also to address your question about the legality of psychedelics, is that what you're...
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is exactly it.
Okay, so I am blessed to live in Oakland, California.
Right.
And I
California, like in Florida now.
Georgia, Florida, the Bible Belt.
We are not in there. We took off our belt.
Yeah.
So Oakland, we're not wearing no belt. We got, white as before. That's right. So Oakland in particular passed a decriminalization law for psychedelics. So it is decriminalized and not a priority, which is a little gray area. And, I am very careful who I work with, and, you have to come to me correct and fly to work with me if we're going to do that relationship. And I think people should read up on it if they're not in Oakland, California. I have a friend who's in the Netherlands. It's decriminalized in Amsterdam, in some parts of Europe. In other countries, I would look it up and see in your particular area. And you would be amazed. Use the Google or the Chrome or the whatever you search, to find out in your particular area. It's truly like transformative working with these medicines.
Are there things that people can do, like Kyle said, to get them on the pathway if they don't have access to certain things, to even just get started in this way of thinking? Because ultimately, I believe the spirit will guide you, and everything you will attract the very thing.
Yeah.
Just like me being in Mexico, like I,
Yeah,
and learn things, but with some people, I think access and having access and resources, but also giving them where you are, exactly where you are there things that people can do to begin this practice before they get to the promised land?
I love that.
Promised land. That's a good question. Okay. Yeah, the willingness.
Yeah.
The ready to shift and to start not only looking out, but look within.
Yeah.
Find that stillness in yourself, because that's where the wisdom resides, in the stillness. And start coming back to that place as your commitment. As I like to say, it just happens to be right here. One of my favorite things is this backwards or
Nope.
forwards?
I can see it correctly.
Nope.
Spiritual.
So here's the word in its entirety, spiritual. And people tend to think, I know I did previously, spiritual, that's a huge word. Like, I'm not spiritual. And what does that even mean? And it's so ominous. I believe that the ritual in the word spiritual is coming back to the art of coming back to one's stillness over and over again, which embodies the word spiritual. Being spiritual means to me coming home to oneself, where
Wow.
God, Allah, whoever you want to call him, her, they, them, whatever they are, that resides within you, go there.
Wow.
That
And
was awesome.
everything else
Yeah.
will be revealed.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
Julie, you dropped. So I'm just kind of like, mind is blown, shift is happening. I
Mm.
feel it on a visceral level,
Yeah.
like this conversation, things that you have shared with us. Thank you so much for like coming and sharing your journey, but also sharing your wisdom to
You're
guide us, to help us get that
welcome.
shift, that soul shift that so many of us
Mhm.
crave and desire. Like, I
Yeah.
don't even ask the questions. It's just like, for what? Like, it was just beautiful. Like, wow.
I
Wow.
feel honored for your words and your kindness and your welcoming me. One thing I'd like to say also, an amazing book that I'm reading right now is by the Reverend Deborah Johnson, and it's called The Sacred Truth.
Well,
And it's the subtitle is The Infinite as Shared with Reverend Johnson. So when I first got the book, I was like, so basically what it is Deborah Johnson, the Reverend, comes back to that place of stillness, and the teachings of like the source, creator, God, universe come through her, and she's just writing and writing and writing.
Amen.
It's the most amazing book. It's
Wow.
like my Bible or my Quran.
Yeah.
I'm reading it on the day.
Wow.
And yeah, I would say people start there, people.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
like the advice. Are we ready? Are we ready to do the round?
Are we? Because I was like, mic drop. Like,
Right. This is like my favorite part of the show is we get to do the rapid fire round. And
I
yeah.
seen one of your, I was like,
but
I
this
better
is
get prepared.
different. Hey, let me tell you,
Yeah.
Sapphire has up-leveled it. Okay, she's up-leveled it,
I
and
love
I
it.
don't know if you're ready for what she's got this time because I know I was not ready. Okay, I was not
I
ready.
sent it to
Oh.
her.
Okay,
she
all right,
has
good,
it.
good.
She
So
had
she's ready. Okay,
no
excellent.
no preparation. So, of course, like Kyle said, this is our favorite round, and I love this round. And so this is our rapid fire round. So, Julie, are
Nice.
you ready?
I'm ready.
Yes.
Yes, let's go. What's one small decision you made that ended up creating a massive shift in your life?
Okay, I would say one small decision that actually ended up being a huge decision was to go to Peru for a whole month with one of my former teachers and shamanic healers and go on a shamanic vision quest.
Wow.
That doesn't sound like
Wow.
a small decision, but it sounds like it was absolutely amazing. Yeah, like
Those things are like, for me, I'm like, that's a yes for me, dog. to know for me, and it's in.
So yes, for me.
I mean,
That is
I was
powerful.
I was blessed to be able to go. So yes, that's
That's awesome.
definite huge shifts.
Yes. Okay, number 2. What's the wildest or most spontaneous thing you've ever done in the name of personal growth?
Oh, I thought that was the okay. Wait, that was the answer to my last this question. My last answer.
That that
It's on the lifelong journey. Okay. Let's reframe that. So
that makes more sense.
the first question was the shift,
The small
right?
decision.
Small decision.
Small thing.
Mm.
Small kind, as we say in Hawaii. Small kind.
Okay, I got a couple of brief answers. One is in deciding and realizing I could dismantle and take off what I call the trauma coat that I was wearing.
Wow.
And the other thing is that realizing and really feeling in my soul that everything is happening in divine timing.
Wow, that is powerful. Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Last but not least, oh, every part. So, in your the theme song that played every time you had a breakthrough, what would that song be?
Okay. It is a tie. It's a tie, and it depends on which kind of breakthrough I'm having. So if it's like, oh yeah, like I told you, God telling me, I told you, just give it up and let me handle it. That one is, I got the lightest touch.
Wait.
Yeah.
Everything
By Midnight Star, old school. And then when I know that everything is everything, which is one of my favorite quotes that I've borrowed from Lauryn Hill. Everything is everything. It's
Yes.
Lovely Day by Bill Withers.
Oh yeah.
Lovely day. Lovely day.
And I know that everything is working in flow. When I
Yes.
hear that song just on the radio,
Oh man. Man, those are good.
Right. When
Not
I
in-
think of you.
yeah.
Yes.
I love that. Oh my God. That was fun.
That
That was fun.
so fun. I have
Yeah.
a feeling
Oh.
that Bill Weathers is going to come up multiple times this season. I just feel it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it's going to happen, but I feel like Lovely Day
It-
is probably going to come up multiple times.
Yes, that's a word for all of us and our listeners.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
love
song,
it.
when I hear that song, I know everything's gonna be all right.
Wow.
And
Ju-
everything is all right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, you have truly blessed us and
Mhm.
our listeners. When Kyle and I began this podcast, because Julie you were in my group with Ignite, with
Yes.
Lisa Nichols, our mentor on motivating the masses campus. We were on the campus. We started the campus together. And such a great spirit, such a great soul. And I'm so glad that we crossed paths. And Kyle and I also crossed paths on the campus and in LA. And when Kyle called and said, hey, we should do a podcast, again, alignment. He doesn't know this, but in my mind, I already said this is something I want to do. But we speak on the vibrational
Yes,
level all
we
the
do.
time.
Yeah.
And one thing we say about this podcast, if nobody else has changed, if no one else's soul is shifted, we are okay because our souls are shifted in such magnificent levels. But of course, our vision, our mission is to empower others to share their story, because
Yes.
our stories empower. And soul shifters, please share in the comment section if there was anything that Julie shared today that really shift your soul, really help you in terms of finding your way, finding your journey. Please put that in the comment section. If you know someone who can use a soul shift, please share our podcast with them. If you want to join the Soul Shift Session Tribe, please go to soulshift.sessions.com and join the tribe. Any final or last words, Kyle?
Oh my God. No, I don't have any last words because Julie Argon said everything that needed to be said. What am I gonna say? What am I gonna say?
I love you guys.
We love you too
Yes,
so much.
thank you so much. And again, folks can find you at Urban Retreat Center Oakland.com.
That's correct.
Awesome.
Awesome. What about social media?
Instagram, I'm at the real Julie Stevens, JuliEstevens, at the real Julie Stevens. I'd be honored for you to follow me. Check out, I post a lot of stuff that is educational, different programs I'm running. I got a program starting in March. I'd love to connect with any of you.
Yes. Now tell us a little bit about that program in a short period, a
Yeah,
short
yeah.
black.
Okay, so it's a 12-week program on somatic healing, on healing the nervous system from the effects of trauma. This program is specifically designed for women, and in the middle of the program, we are going to have a retreat. And so the retreat is led by me and one of my dear trusted helpers, and it's a plant medicine retreat.
It's beautiful.
So you're
Now,
going to get
that-
12 weeks.
is this in person, 12-week program in person, or could it be done in person? I know the retreat has to be done in person, but could the program?
Retreat will be in person, and then the 12-week teachings are going to be on Zoom.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Wow.
And I'll
thank
be
you so much.
teaching the actual tools that help me and hundreds of other clients that I work with heal from the effects of trauma. So you
Well,
can
there you
thrive.
go. Yeah, there you go. We were asking, how can people get started?
Let's
Join
do it.
retreat. Join Julie's 12-week program. That's how you
There you
start.
go.
And
There you go.
that from there.
It's called Homecoming.
That's beautiful.
Look at you, girl.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I like the fact that you
Yeah.
explain coming back to yourself way ahead of time. So hearing the words homecoming makes so much more sense now because it's a different
Yeah.
context now.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Even plan it that way. See, it's the divine timing thing.
I mean, yes, I love that. I love
Really?
that. Well,
Yes.
until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Peace.
Peace.
Big blessings, everyone. Thanks, you guys.
Absolutely.